Friends, welcome back to the Film Alchemist podcast, the show where we look at movies we love, break them apart to find out what gives them their magic. I'm your host, Josh Griffey, joined as always by my friend and co-host,
Alex Dandino.
Now, we are very pro-stutter on this, but this will make sense in a minute. All right, guys, a little business before we dive into the courtroom, as it were. Please take a second right now, wherever you find the show, especially if that to be Apple Podcast app. Leave us a quick 5-star rating, a sentence or two review about why you enjoy spending time with the show. Helps us out enormously. Thank you to those who've been doing it. This is how we fight the oppressive algorithmic overlords. Please go to YouTube. Subscribe to our channel, Film Alchemist. You can see video versions of most of these audio podcasts there, along with other fun stuff we're working on. So again, that's Film Alchemist on YouTube. Subscribe, share, all that good stuff. You can email the show, filmalchemistpod@gmail.com. You can also find us on all the social media you're on. That's a great way to reach out to us. Let us know movies that you want to hear covered, be they new, old. If you have a theme for a whole month, a double feature, guest host, yeah, whatever. I was excited. We got a call for the Ewok double feature, which that may have to happen. But yeah, guys.
Are you sure that wasn't just me?
That was just me sending it into us. Yeah, we're both just sending it in. But yeah, so guys, that's a great way. I do make a master list of everything we get recommended. So I have a big list going, but I do read them all eventually. So thank you guys in advance for all the stuff you do for us. We appreciate it. All right. That's enough business. Time to legally wrestle with the ethics of defensing in Primal Fear. This is Richard Gere, Laura Linney in an inverse attack mode from Emily Rose, which we had talked about how great that would be to see. Inadvertent perfect pairing here. Laura Linney on the attack. And introducing Edward Norton.
Woo!
All right, Alex.
Yes.
Now, I remember this was one of those explosive movies when it hit. My parents had thought they had just seen the greatest film ever. When this came out at the video store, it was a race to try to get this at the video store. Totally rented for weeks, right? You remember how they'd have that whole wall where it'd be like 20 of the newest, hottest movie?
Always gone.
Primal Fear. This was an earth-shattering movie for our parents, right? And I remember seeing it and thinking it was this amazing thrill ride. And oh my God, they got me. Obviously, this movie most known for the ending. I think what is really funny about watching it again is that it plays so much differently than I thought. I think you could argue that this movie is infinitely less thrilling than you will remember.
I would agree.
But because that ending is one of the finest postscripts in movie history, it goes back and genetically alters, right? It's like an ending CRISPR that goes back and rewrites the movie in your brain to be this insanely taut thriller. It was quite a ride today. What did you make, Alex? Opening thoughts.
Fascinating experience watching this movie as an adult. I think I snuck downstairs and watched this with my parents because they would rent me. So whenever we went to the video store, this was, let's see, 96. So this came out when I think I was living in Noblesville in Indiana. So we'd go to Kenley's supermarket again. My parents would rent this, and then they would rent me, like, I think at that time I was really into like Power Rangers episodics. So I would get like a Power Rangers tape. This was one of those that I snuck downstairs to see what my parents were interested in. And years later, I was talking with my dad about it, and he was like, "Did you not figure it out?" And like my dad just says, like, "You didn't figure out he was fucking with everyone for the first like 5 minutes you saw him?" I'm like, no. And he's like, "Well, I don't know." I'm like, "You're a lawyer, man."
Yeah, he's a law dog.
I'm like, "You're a fucking law dog. Of course you're gonna know that." He goes, "Everyone should know that." I'm like, "All right, high and mighty." Just watching movies with my dad is like watching movies with us.
Right. But this is what I'm saying, right? So everyone was in a tizzy today on Film Twitter because they're doing a remake of this Australian film, Goodnight Mommy, right?
Yeah, saw that.
It's a fine little horror film, but it's one of those things that from the very first shot of the movie, right? You're like, oh, I know exactly what they're doing. Within 5 minutes, you're like, that's going to be the twist. And the movie loses a lot in my mind because of that, right? Because you're like, I get it. Just, it's still really a fun journey. So Not talking trash on Goodnight Mommy. I do like it, but you figure it out so fast.
Right.
And I feel like I'm pretty great at guessing the twist of movies way out in advance. I think you do a podcast like this and you are a screenwriter, and I used to be a script notes. That was like my job. I'd be a screenplay analyst. I feel like you get it.
Yeah.
I can honestly say I did not know this was coming when I saw it as a kid. And even watching it again, I think I could be fooled as an adult that this ending was coming, because the movie is really funny because it does almost every single scene reminds you that Aaron definitely killed this guy.
Yeah.
And that Richard Gere 100% is going to refuse to accept this as truth. But I think it's because they do the double twist.
Yeah.
Right? Who saw it's so funny because this movie is almost like a meta indictment of the courtroom thriller as we all like to watch them.
Yeah.
And it's weaponizing our belief that that's how real court cases happen.
It does such a good job. Yeah. I mean, like I've asked, my dad's a like corporate attorney. I had a friend who was an actual trial lawyer, and I asked him one time, like, cause I love Law and Order. And I asked him one time, and Law and Order is another great example of like, I know the beats in Law and Order. Like I can tell you for sure what's going to happen in an episode of Law and Order just because it's written that way, but it doesn't make it any less entertaining. But I asked a trial lawyer friend one time, like, how close is that? And she said, oh, I don't know. Do you have negative percentage? Can I put that in there? Like, that's not a thing. I'm like, really? And they're like, none of that kind of stuff happens in court. Like it's super uptight and kind of it's not interesting like that.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fair enough. This is another great example though of, because there's always a twist in in these courtroom procedurals, like the evidence everyone thought they didn't have, that kind of thing. What Primal Fear does is gives you the double twist, which in 96 was unheard of. Like that was not a thing anyone was doing. So I can tell you, watching it as an adult, obviously I know what's going to happen, but it was still quite thrilling to get the double twist. The second twist is like, oh shit, and I totally forgot what Edward Norton said to him to like tip him off. And we'll get to like the line that I thought was just, there's a line in there that I just think is fucking brilliant. But it's so much, it makes a courtroom drama that otherwise could be like super stuffy. Because it's like, of course the archdiocese is going to cover up. And of course this guy is a diddler. Like there's no shock value there at all. Because like we all, especially in 2021, we all know these guys are like, most of them are utter scumbags. So the like twist being what it is, which is that Aaron has a dissociative identity disorder. You're like, whoa, that is crazy. And then you get to the end, you're like, wait a second, hold the phone. And then you get to do that thing we all love doing, which is going back through the beginning of the movie. And you're like, wow, this is fucking nuts. And for 1996, it's a great movie to watch.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what's really funny is that there are probably about 50 scenes, right? Because the movie even starts us off by telling us exactly what it's going to do.
Right.
Which is, if you want justice, go to a whorehouse. If you want to get fucked, go to court. So the movie is fucking telling us. And then they even, Richard Gere, we see his previous, mafia clientele start. They add that subplot. Because what's really brilliant is the way they sprinkle it in, right? The first time we see Aaron is actually just in passing at like one of these big money dinners, right? Everyone's a sleazebag. Mm-hmm. The priest is making a confessional joke like, it's funny that we're abusing the Catholic Church. Right? And it's like, that's great. In the background of that, in part of the montage, as Gere shows up in his tux, is fucking Aaron as a literal choir boy, right?
There is.
So the movie's doing that. Then they're showing us this cardinal or whatever the fuck he is, right? Kind of hobnobbing with scumbag lawyers, and Marty Crane's there being a piece of shit. So you're just like, they're really laying it out that these people are all kind of bad. And one of the brilliant tricks of the movie, right? It's kind of the devil's greatest trick was making us believe that he didn't exist. That's what this movie's doing the whole time, right?
Yeah.
Everything we see in this movie tells us beyond a shadow of a doubt that Aaron did this crime. Aaron is 100% guilty.
Absolutely.
The movie does a great job, right? So here, let's introduce this mafia client. And these corporate overlords, they're trying to get this land that the archdiocese is a part of. Oh, now they're tough talking a lawyer, right? Marty Crane's coming down.
Right.
Like, don't make me sick, idiot. Legal idiot on you, right? He's throwing his fucking weight around. So they have this whiff of, oh, there's something bigger. There's something corrupt. And because they're politicians and heads of church and mafia guys, it has this whiff of, yeah, I don't trust any of those fucking people, right?
Right.
But that doesn't change the fact that when you see the guy get fucking brutal, I forgot about the brutal finger chops.
Yeah.
And murdering.
There are some special effects in this movie.
Woo! And then the windows blow out, right? The next thing we see is Aaron running from the cops covered in blood.
Yeah.
What do we ever see for the rest of the movie that tells us that's not what happened, right? And I love when Richard Gere pauses on his TV, because there's this weird thing Richard Gere does in the movie, which is watch news coverage of himself all the time.
Very into himself.
When he pauses it and we look at Aaron, we are watching Richard Gere in real time write a script in his mind that not only do I need to take this case because it's going to be this big money case, we find out maybe later there's something with him and Marty Crane he wants to get revenge for.
Right.
There's something else going on. But in his mind, he's already begun to write, how could this person be innocent?
Right.
And watching him for the rest of the movie fucking refuse every single chance to change that narrative is really fucking brilliant, because that's how we watch these movies.
Yes. I mean, I think that's the thing that's great about, because it's always weird to me, movies about defense lawyers, because defense lawyers literally are built to, essentially these movies particularly are all about the guilty party is clearly guilty. Like in the movies we've watched this month, movies we're watching this month, like everyone who gets off is guilty. And it's all about these defense lawyers who figure out how to get them off, other than one of them. But everybody, so much about movies that are built around defense attorneys are about them justifying to themselves getting the guilty off. And I think it's interesting because Richard Gere's character seems like a good guy, but all of them.
When is that scene?
Oh, at the very beginning, when he's fully willing to admit the hypocrisy of the whole thing, I'm like, I can deal with that. But then, obviously, he decides to go another direction.
Yeah, I was gonna say his fucking legal fee-feeing of Laura Linney aside and just screaming at everyone because he essentially is the biggest sack of shit.
We will get to here's my there is a moment in this movie that crystallizes what a sack of shit Richard Gere is in this. And we should get this out on Front Street, because this movie's whole game is, right, it's don't look at the shitty guy behind the curtain. Yeah. Let's pull the curtain back. Richard Gere, horrible.
Also, I love that his name is Marty Vale. Yes, the Vale. But no, he's a judge. So here's what he does. He essentially is I'm going to light the fuse on this fucking murder bomb, this stuttering murder bomb, and then let my former side piece run up, and she just gets choked. He could have snapped her fucking neck, anything, right? And she's back there smoking and just what happened? I almost got killed. He walks up behind her, starts grinding on her pantsuit.
Gives her the fucking,
hey, maybe I'll let you roll around in the hay with me again. Thanks for taking the L. Bye!
Yeah, that is the scene. Throughout the movie, there's again, like I said, the very beginning, you're oh, maybe this guy's trying to do the right thing, blah, blah, blah. No, terrible. Almost immediately that gets, you're well, maybe he's trying to find his way back. Not really. And then he literally sets up Laura Linney to get tapped to strikes. And you're wow, that's horrible.
I mean, tap to strikes is the best thing that could have happened. She could have just gotten roadhouse.
Then above all the other thing, he literally sets her up to get murdered in the courtroom, then finishes it off by full-blown sexual harassing her after he almost got her murdered. He's who knows, maybe she's got that murder boner going. And
not only that, so not only does he just slide up on her pantsuit, but then he's also also you're unemployed, so I might be your last bridge left. And I was
yeah, what the fuck?
I mean, he is a marauder.
It's horrifying.
He has just burnt this woman's life down, and he's and I'm coming for that ass.
And I'm getting that ass.
You're the worst. Because that was the scene in the movie. I was if they really wanted to pull a satisfying twist ending,
He gets killed.
Laura Linney should have fucking stabbed him with that
Agreed.
bottle of water just right in the jugular.
I actually texted you when I was watching this, and I was watching this scene. I'm like, wow, Richard Gere is like full piece of shit, and this movie has not aged well at all. But like, it is insane that see, to me, this is the crazy thing too. Is like, this is supposed to be the hero of the fucking story.
Yeah.
It's insane to me that scene is left in. Like, oh, well, boys will be boys. Like, it's like, come on. If I'm supposed to think this guy is even remotely decent, because then like, it's weird because like then that twist comes at the end and it almost invalidates like this like weird, actually, you know what? I take that back. It doesn't invalidate anything. It actually is exactly what I wanted.
He has to be a piece of shit.
He has to be a piece of shit because when it happens, it's like, oh, wow, I am a huge, like that's the revelation he gets, is that he actually is a huge piece of shit.
Well, because here's the thing. It's not at the end when Marty Vale is standing in the courtroom and he freezes like, oh, what have I done?
Yeah.
I don't get the sense he's going to change his ways.
No.
And I don't get the sense that Roy is, bummed out at cheating the system, right? That moment when he stops and Marty's still talking from wherever the fuck in the back he is, right? That's us getting our knuckles wrapped. Yeah. That's, you fucking people wanted this. You want to fucking eat it up, right? A doctor, the legal experts, the judge, jurors. You guys want to believe that this is how it happened, right? Because it is easier to accept that, oh, there's a pocket brain universe, right? And that does exist, I'm sure, somewhere. Sure. But how many people use this as a defense, right? How many of these cases are a true psychiatric disorder versus this? And what the movie is telling us in a kind of meta way is, you guys love this. You love these movies that are so outlandish and impossible to accept. Instead of Occam's razor, which is what's the most likely scenario of truth?
Right.
Just fucking believe that and you'll almost always be right. You guys want these fucking legal gymnastics and a WrestleMania breaks out. And it's like, no, this guy just absolutely fucking bent the system to his will.
Right.
And sadly, it probably happens more than we'd like to admit in both directions.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's all of us to sit there and go, fuck, we are all a part of this probably. Because the way they send, like, it's the what's that fucking vampire's name who does the murder shows? Nancy Grace, right? So that fucking vampire.
Okay, I thought you were actually talking about a vampire. I'm like, oh no, human vampire.
No, actual vampires have rules. Nancy Grace is unleashed, but like she'll just show up in a town and just start being like, I bet this happened. I don't know. And then everyone just is taking this as, oh, that's probably true. Cause Nos for H&L or whatever said. But that's what I mean. We're all a part of this. I hope that's the networks. That'll be a sick joke if it is. But anywho, that's the world we live in. We like to over sensationalize, right? Like, when I was watching this, I couldn't help but think of that Casey Anthony trial, right?
Oh, no, absolutely.
And I was like, I think we as Americans so fundamentally misunderstand the concept of court and reasonable doubt, right? So all her goober lawyer did was like, I don't know, maybe her dad's a rapist. Maybe this happened. And the reason she got off is because the prosecutors were too specific on how they thought the death was. And we lose sight of, this little girl was found in a duffel bag a mile from her parents' house.
Right.
She didn't report her child missing for 30 days and was out living it up. You're like, let's use some reasonable doubt here, right? We both have kids, right?
Yes.
If you couldn't find your kids for 30 minutes, it would be DEFCON 5. But that's a whole
I can tell you right
thing.
now, I've my parents who are fully vaccinated now, my parents took my kid on a walk. And I legitimately was terrified because it's just like he's out of I haven't seen him in a whole minute. So who the fuck knows what's going to happen? Like, that's like, yeah, absolutely. The reasonable doubt thing is for sure.
That's what I'm saying though, right? So any reasonable person is like, oh, she didn't report her kid missing for 30 days. She is 100% responsible for what happened to that kid.
Yes.
Now, however it happens, this and that, whatever, she's probably involved. But what happens is, again, fucking, Nos for Karen comes down and she starts just throwing in, oh, wouldn't it be great for ratings if the brother's a diddler and the dad's a diddler and there was abuse, and we get caught up on all of these side things.
Yes.
Right. And I think, like, to your dad's point, this is not how court works, but that's how we want it to work. It's dramatic. Right. It's good versus evil.
Because, and it's interesting, like, we see movies and TV about the law and about things that happen. So because that's what's great about Primal Fear too, is it plays with our perception of what this actually is. Because in reality, this case is probably, if you made this into a movie of like realistic proportions, it's like a really boring movie of a guy sitting in a law library reading precedents. Like,
well, this is the inverse of Spotlight. Spotlight is people doing
Spotlight
diligent,
is the real thing.
Evidence-based work and watching people do homework, right? This is the salacious late night news. This is
the Nancy Grace version. And that's like a really important thing, is that it does as much, like, and you're right, like, we do as much work for the law as the law does for us. Like, we allow the court of public opinion to sway, and like that is a big part of this movie as well, is like everyone's perception of the Archdiocese, of Aaron Stampler, of Marty Vale, like all these people that are in this movie. Like, that's why Marty likes watching himself on TV, because he knows he's like sort of a celebrity. It's love like Johnny Cochran.
Yes, I love the bit of all of the lawyers watching the TV constantly.
Yes.
Because you're like, why the fuck does that matter, right? You're really playing to these jurors and supposedly the truth. What I love about the movie, too, is it throws this concept out. I feel like that's the only kind of true thing in this movie, is that this movie knows that the courtroom is not about truth.
Right.
As much as this game, right? Because that was Richard Gere's thing early. Again, building on this, he believes in what he does and that he's always right in this and that.
Yeah.
Is at the start when the reporter's like, when did you know you had him? He's like, the day I took the case. And I was like, that lets you know who this man is from the moment he takes the case. Right. He cannot let it creep in that, I might be letting these murderers off and this and that. He's there to win. He's there playing a different blood sport game, and he will just win with whatever pieces he's given, right? It doesn't matter if the guy's innocent or not.
Well, right. I mean,
which is his job.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's what the concept of the superstar lawyer is. Like, it's the guy, like, you get the guy, you pay the big retainer because he's the best. He's the most creative. He's the one who put the best stuff. And like, I think that's what's like, for one, to me, like, this is like, I've watched enough of these now where I'm watching there. I'm like, I think there should have been like probably a mistrial as soon as, or like he would have fully been disbarred for not like automatically telling the court like, hey, my client has DID, rather than like, because that is like a big, you're putting everyone in danger for one, but also that's like a huge thing that can throw the case. So like immediately, because I'm trying to enjoy the movie and like watch it happen and like let it, in the middle of it, I'm just sitting there, I'm like, how is this guy still a lawyer? Like,
well, the judge said like, well, you can't switch it up. And I was like, what? Like, you can't say,
that I didn't understand. Pants. That's like some legal thing, is like, you can't do an insanity plea once you're mid-trial because you could get disbarred. Like, I
think you just have to let that kind of stuff slide.
That's the one you got to give to law movies. You're like, I don't know enough about this. That's the one. I'm like, I don't know what this is. Yeah. So yeah, there you go.
I was like, I don't know jack shit, but I would hope that if I'm a lawyer, it's like, yeah, dude, I was doing my paperwork and this guy fucking threw me in a figure 4 headlock and like choked me out. I think this guy's fucking nuts. And I'm like, nope, no changing it now.
You may not change it now.
Yeah. You can't recast Michael Landon in season 3 of Stairway to Heaven. There it is. Nope, there aren't dinosaurs out. We can't change. You can't change please in the middle of a dinosaur ride.
Yeah.
But
weird.
But this is the cool thing though, right? So back to the Richard Gere thing. I think he's a beautiful lens for this movie, right?
Yes.
Because one, he's the anti-everyman, right?
Mm-hmm.
So slick,
super not everyman,
so handsome, so smart, so rich,
so filled with gerbils.
Yeah. Is that a crime? We'll have to litigate that in part. Primal Fear is actually what the hamsters were feeling. I still have no idea why this is called Primal Fear.
Okay. Can we get to that later? I have to talk about
let's do that now. Fuck it. We'll get back to Richard Gere. Why the fuck is this movie
Why is this movie called Primal Fear? What is the Primal Fear? Like, I don't know. Like, I texted you in the middle of this. I'm like, why is this movie called this? Like, I would have called it like, I don't know. I don't know what I would have called it, to be honest with you. Like
Two Men and a Preacher.
Two Men, One Preach. It's such a weird title for this movie because like it evokes something that I think makes me immediately, because when I was a kid, I always confused this one and that Mark Wahlberg movie Fear.
Yeah.
Just
much
because,
the same thing.
Just because like
just poorly behaving whites getting away with it.
Yeah, two poorly behaved white boys just getting away with whatever. Like it never computed for me, but watching this movie this year, I didn't know why it was called Primal Fear. Like I tried looking up like what would the definition of primal fear be? Couldn't find a satisfactory
fear of
answer.
the dark. That's what I think.
Fear, like
what are built-in genetic fear? Like they
genetic
say
fears.
When we see reptiles, right?
Right.
That our ancient brains associate that with, that's different. That's not mammalian. That's a predator. What?
Right.
I mean, I guess the primal fear in this movie is that we're all so much less than we think we are. Right? Because the entire character of Martin Vale is built on, I don't know, all lies. Like, I'm a good guy. Laura Linney should like me. Well, no, you're a bit of a sack of shit. Well, you know, I defend the innocent. Like when he gives that reporter his whole spiel about, you know why I really do it? It's like, fuck off. No, you don't. Yeah. You're just a fucking scumbag. You like the extra money. So maybe the primal fear is that we are so much dumber and smaller and insignificant than we think. So at the end, when he freezes, and it's like, how did I fucking buy this hook, line, and sinker? And he must, on some level, recognize that he was the author of this story as much as Roy. I was like, maybe, but sense. I'm like, is that a fucking primal fear?
Well, I thought about like maybe the primal fear is the fear of, I guess primal fear would be the fear of being wrong. That was like the first thing I thought of. Like,
yeah, I think as a human, you have to get over the being wrong. So that shit just happens every day.
Well, that's for you and I, the common man. For guys like Marty Vale, they're not always wrong. I think they're wrong.
Right. They just fucking get away with it by crippling the system.
So that means their primal fear would be getting like, it's just a weird title for this kind of movie. I mean, like, but beyond that, like,
no.
I studied, by the way, like the poster for this movie is bizarre. And I never like it feels
Richard, like he has an angel shadow.
He has like angel wing shadows. And I still didn't understand that. Like,
and later we realized they're actually demon wings.
They're
and
actually
he soared on the wings of a demon.
they're just wings to take him from his one sexual harassment to the next. Like, I didn't like. There's a lot of marketing, and I wondered if that was just like the 1996 of it all, is like Richard Gere is still a very famous actor. So we have to like say like, oh, Richard Gere is, you know, he's an angel. I'm like, no, he is not.
But this gets back to maybe this is all part of the ploy, right?
Right. Okay.
So I don't know how the primal fearness plays in, right? But this lawyer who's, you know, an angel, and he's caught in a dark alley. He's caught in a dark legal situation where he's got to get off the innocent victim boy, right?
Right.
So it's this duality that they're always playing with, right? The mask, the Hawthorne quote, right? Do we wear many masks? Sure.
Right.
So maybe that poster setting our parents primal fear, right? So there's more, it's scary, or something weird's going on. But again, when we see Aaron soaked in blood, he's got the fucking ring.
Right.
He did it. How do we keep muddying it? Do you remember the first time we saw Aaron after that? Richard Gere's walking into jail. In every cell, right? They had those little rectangle windows, right? Mm-hmm. Just fucking hardened criminal men. I'll get you. Spit on the glass. You know, jerk off on the glass.
Right.
You know, it's the island of lost toys, right?
Right. Well, it's
come to Aaron's window,
the lamps thing,
and he's small, and he's sitting on the cot, and he's shrinking, right? And he looks like a scared little boy who's like, "Where the fuck am I?" And again, it's through this tiny little rectangle, right? Peeping into this other world, this other reality that Aaron's sitting and basking in. And in that moment, because that's the cool thing, is you have to start being like, oh, so the movie's POV is Richard Gere, right?
Right.
So we're watching it through that lens. And at that moment is when I was like, oh, fuck, this whole movie's a lie. This whole movie is a lie because it's us seeing everything through Richard Gere's lens, right?
Right.
Where everyone keeps telling him that Aaron did it. And he just keeps saying, he's like, I think he's telling the truth. I think he's innocent. I believe. There's that great scene when he comes out and they got fucking clocked in court, and he didn't see it coming, right? About the Hawthorne passage. And he's like, why the fuck didn't you guys find it? And his assistant's just like, wait a sec, you know that Aaron did this, right? Like, we're trying a third man defense because we want to win. But she's like, you know he did this, right? And he's like, I don't accept that he did it. And he's just furiously mad.
Defiant.
But his two associates are like, oh shit, we thought you knew. We thought we were doing the thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, but you know this motherfucker did it. And I think Francis McDormand says it, or Dermot says it at one point, like, yeah, I'm pretty sure this guy probably did it. I'm not going to bullshit you. What is fun is then watching. So as the movie is letting Richard Gere lie to us, then we watch Richard Gere start to lie and take authorship of the story as well. Right. And the pivotal scene, right, is where we see Roy and Marty have their first showdown.
Right.
That's the pivotal, because we saw Roy come out a little bit with the doctor. Because one of the questions I wanted to ask you, do you think that this was some kind of plan that Roy cooks up? Or do you think Marty is more the author of this defense strategy? Because Roy definitely hits him, or Roy reveals himself to the doctor first.
Right.
But in that scene, right, where you see them going at each other, I had to wonder who started this defensive snowball rolling. Because I would argue that this is Marty's story and script that he wrote. And Roy just played the part exceptionally. What do you make of that?
You're saying that Marty is in on it, or?
No. I'm saying, do you think that when Roy got arrested, or Aaron got arrested, right, that he's like, oh, I'm going to do the split personality defense? Or do you think talking through Marty, he picked up the cues, oh, I can get this guy to run, and just was taking his cues from Marty?
No, I mean, for me, like, I saw the long con for Roy. To me, like, for me personally, like, this is an act of there's an act of vengeance here beyond reproach. Like, I think that this starts so far before the movie begins. Like, even back to when he was a kid, like, they talk about how more than likely Aaron came from an abusive home, his father was abusive, and that kind of thing. Like, he drops little hints here and there. I think this is what I picked up from this movie is this is legitimately like Roy's crusade, because this is like,
right,
the end of the movie is like the twist at the end, like when he reveals like this whole thing has been a sham. The thing that I love the most is twofold. One, the line that he gives is like, he's like, so Roy's not even real. There was never a Roy. And he goes, there was never an Aaron.
Yeah. He's like, cancel. I'm disappointed in you.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Like, that is a great line, because it reveals the entire movie right there, which is, this is a fucking long con from Roy, the real person.
Okay. But here's the divergent point that I'm asking about, right? I think he creates Aaron to try to soften himself up. Laura Linney at one point's like, you want to put that handsome stutterer up there to gain sympathy. Right. I think he knows that part. The question I have is when he decides, oh, I will reveal Roy. And now we're not doing a third man defense. Now we're doing I did this, but an other inside of me did it, right? The dark passenger took over.
That is very specific.
Because that's why Marty knows about the clouded past. He knows about this and that. So I think once when Marty comes in, because again, that's the leverage point. He turns off the camera, right? And I think that's a really important moment. He turns off the camera because he doesn't want anyone to know that his truth is shattered. And he starts, you did it, you little fuck. I know you fucking killed him. Tell me the truth. You lied to me. I don't trust you. So this is the point in the movie, right? This is the midpoint, the point of no return, where Marty knows for a fact that he is wrong, that he has believed a lie, that he has been passionately defending that this kid didn't do it. Now he knows that this kid did it. And I think in that moment, Roy sees a crack and he's like, I've got to give him something. Right. And so he goes, what the fuck do you think? What? And when Marty puts his finger up, don't come in, Doc. I think that is a collaborative writing exercise where Roy is just trying to follow him step for step where he wants to go. Because I really do think the origin of this is more Marty than Roy at times.
I mean, I think that it's twofold. Like, I think that because again, Roy is clearly the smartest person in the room. That's obvious.
But and even that, not even he's the only one who is believing. He knows the truth. But everyone else is rewriting.
Well, and this is like that's like what's pinnacle about the end of the movie is like he's the only one who's telling the truth the entire time in reality. He never he gives the Oscar worthy performance as Aaron because Roy doesn't want to go to jail. Roy wants to get out of this. Roy gets out of it. He figures a way out. But I think a really important thing about this is Roy plays Marty so well that he doesn't even realize that Marty's not in on it. He thinks Marty understands. He even says it. He goes, I thought you knew the whole time. I thought you were just letting me do it.
That's what I mean though, right? So by hook or crook, Marty is kind of the author.
Right.
And he's just doing what he needs to do to get this across the line because Marty is the one who's pushing him. He essentially, when he's yelling at him, he goes, I'm losing this fucking case.
Yeah.
You need to lay it out now. Tell me something.
Right.
And so what does Roy do? He reveals himself. He's like, here's the fucking truth of it. Here's what's happening. Right. So he's letting him in on the truth. And then Marty takes that and goes, aha, not, oh, fuck, my client did it. But there is a third man, an internal third man. And he's holding the finger up to the doctor like, get out.
That's the defense lawyerness of it all, is using this to its. This is the part that I was like, wouldn't he be disbarred for doing this? But I guess not, because again, that's the one you give. But like, that's using your defense. That's using what you know as the ammo. And I think that's what completely compiles Richard Gere further as a huge piece of shit. Marty uses this ammo to his advantage rather than being honest and doing the right thing and saying, hey, my client is clearly insane. There's a problem. And then you get the reveal at the end, like, oh my God, like I let this guy get away with it because I'm a bad lawyer. Like the revelation isn't that he's a
really good lawyer.
Right. He's a really good lawyer. The revelation isn't like I'm a really good lawyer and a horrible person. The revelation is, wow, I'm a great lawyer and I feel sort of bad, but I'm probably going to go to the bar, get plastered, and forget all about this.
Him land sharking Laura Linney wasn't a red flag to him. He's like, oh, that was fine, but now I'm bad. But this is what I mean, right? Because that has a lot of this movie. The script for this movie is brilliant, right? I think it's really long. I would have cut out all the fucking mafia shit on the side and, oh, the guy got thrown in the rip. But again, I think all that is just to throw reasonable doubt on us, the audience, right?
Yeah.
So it serves a purpose, right? But what it is, the script is just full of these double moments. And when this is one of those movies where I really think the second watch might be more fun than the first.
Yeah.
It's fun to get, slapped upside the head with, oh, fuck. It's really fun to go back and say, holy shit, they had us the whole time.
Yeah.
And this one is perfection in how they lay it out. But that scene has a couple lines where he comes out and he's like, I'm Roy. And he's like, so you killed the preacher or whatever.
Right.
And he's like, you see Aaron, he couldn't kick his own ass. And in that moment, he's saying, you see that Aaron is the fake.
Yeah.
And Richard Gere just takes that and internalizes it through his own fucking bullshit machine.
Right.
He goes, yeah.
Yeah,
he's fucking telling him specifically.
He doesn't do he does the thing that normal people would do, which is take it at face value. He does not do what, like, if let's say we switch him. If this was a Laura Linney movie and she was Marty Vale, she would grill the shit out of him. And Frances McDormand, who's supposed to be this great psychiatrist, wouldn't have gone, he's clearly faking.
Right. But that's another thing, though. How many of those doctors spend their whole career wanting to find this moment?
Right. He's a great case study. So
it's the self-fulfilling prophecy.
Celebrity.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But it's brilliant because, again, as the holder of the truth, he's helping them. He's giving them what they want to write their own truths. She wants this to be a split personality because I've studied it for years. I've never seen one like this. This will become the paper that becomes the definitive,
right?
Fucking split personality. So she wants it. She fucking wants it and buys it because, again, he plays this blank slate where everyone's filling him with their own nonsense, right? So not only does he starts grilling Marty like, you see Aaron, right? He can't kick anyone's ass. He couldn't commit this crime. No shit. Marty's like, aha, I was right the whole time. And then he goes, don't you fucking show that tape to anyone. It's motive. So
Right.
now Roy knows what Marty's steps are and is playing along.
Yes.
Right. So I guess you could argue maybe I wasn't all the way right that Marty's I think Marty's still the genesis, but Roy is a co-author for sure. But
Roy's a co-author. I think what's fascinating, like what's really interesting is Roy basically uses Marty as a patsy to get out of this. Like that's really kind of like the thing that is most fascinating is Roy is so convinced that he's rightly so that he's got everyone over a barrel, that he's so sure of it that he believes it doesn't, like, that's the thing that I love about that final scene is he literally doesn't even believe he's so good at this. He doesn't even believe that he could do it on his own. He's like, I was sure you were in on it. Like, I thought you knew. Like, that's how insane this guy is he's so good at it. He's so sociopathic that he doesn't even think he doesn't even think he's accomplished enough to possibly do this. He just does it. It's preternatural. So for Marty to literally not know is almost unfathomable because he's just like, how could you be so dumb? And that is
because you're not a dumb guy, but how is anyone buying this?
Buying this? It's fascinating. I mean, that's really kind of like what makes the character that much more lethal at the end of the movie is you're just sitting there and you're like, this guy, like we talk about like what happens, the more interesting movie happens like after the camera stopped rolling. Like this guy ends up going on like a blood quest to every archdiocese and just pulls the Aaron Stampler defense as time goes on. Like
I feel like he's going to be the guy who just goes somewhere else and read like a talented Mr. Ripley thing,
absolutely.
Right?
He just does it.
The question
over and
becomes,
over again.
what does Marty Vale do? Because I will guess he takes the next high dollar case.
Oh, I don't think Marty Vale
shit.
changes a fucking thing about his MO.
No, and that's the thing, because again, this is all about the mask, right? The scene when he's at the bar, and this is the In Vino Veritas scene, right? It's another one where the guy is trying to get a quote for his paper or whatever. And Marty says, why gamble with money when you can gamble with people's lives? And he goes, no, I'm just kidding. And I was like, the fuck you are. That's exactly what you
fucking sociopath.
Yeah. And then he's like,
absolutely.
Oh, well, I think sometimes really good people do some really bad things. And it's like, that's your horseshit line. That first line, that's what you're doing.
That's
you're a fucking adrenaline junkie, right?
Absolutely.
You like all the side shit, but he can't even be honest with himself. So how can he accept the truth of this other man when he doesn't even know the truth of his fucking self? So I thought that was great because the courtroom scenes again, questionable at best. He's essentially doing the Ancient Alien defense.
Yeah.
Isn't it possible? Right?
The big hair.
Yeah. Isn't it possible that a Robotron with that not know? You know what I mean? Like he just keeps saying, isn't it possible?
Right.
And then once the tape gets added in, now we're doing this whole other, oh fuck, now it's gotten real. And I think that's another one of those funny things, which is that is a tried and true legal defense, is blaming the victim for their own death. Right. And so that's another one of those throwing it on to where we've all heard this story enough. And it's so sickening and sadly too common that we're like, good, we're glad that motherfucker got chopped up. We want to believe that Aaron can still be a good guy, even though he's this butcher. So we start wanting to buy into this. Again, the movie tells us, don't believe anything you're hearing.
It's true.
But we want to. And that's what I think the trick, and it works well, even on subsequent viewings.
It does.
The just giving us the fucking, slide to go down works every fucking scene. It's really amazing.
And it like absolutely shouldn't after the first viewing. And yet it works so well because this is just because it's masterfully acted. Yeah. The story's crafted well enough where you don't feel like you don't feel like this is a thing that a lot of movies like this do that annoys the shit out of me is like they purposely lead you astray on a different tangent. Like we talk about the mafia subplot. Yes. Wildly unnecessary. Like I literally like it does only to demonstrate what a piece of shit Richard Gere is, which we need no help with at all in this movie.
I think it's just throwing the church, right? Because it's a man of God, a respected man of God. They're just sullying his name, right? So it is weird because in a meta sense, it plays very much like how we think courtroom movies play. But I think what you're getting to, right, is like, it's one of my problems is people always are like, you don't like Saw, the movie Saw? And I was like, no, that whole movie's built on nonsense. The idea of it is great, right? But this is horror. This is cheating in a movie. So in the movie Saw, right, the guy's stuck in the dungeon, right? Him and this other guy, and there's a dead body, right? They're figuring the shit out. At one point, a man in black goes to capture his wife and his kid. And what does he do? He holds a fucking gun to them and listens as their heartbeat increases, right? Letting us know that that's a bad person, because no one would ever do that in real life, even if they were also being tricked to go kidnap a family, because you would, I don't know, maybe just want to get the job done and not torture the fuck out of a mom and kid. And then at the end, they're like, he was also a victim. You're like, that's fucking bullshit. That's fucking bullshit. And you lied to us specifically so that we couldn't figure out who the real killer was. That's fucking cheating. This movie, I would argue, doesn't cheat because the character is willingly lying to himself, right? The characters are lying to us, not the storytellers.
Right.
And that's the important distinction. That's why this one works so well. And again, him grabbing the microphone, right? Be a man, don't act like that is him again, reaffirming this is his fucking delusion as much as it is everyone else's, right? Roy might be playing the part, but this is Marty's fucking spectacle for, he's like the stage magician, and Aaron or Roy become the, person, the lady he's going to saw in half.
Well, yeah, Aaron Roy is like the lion with his mouth open, and then the guy puts his head like literally it's all of us putting our head in the lion's mouth. Yeah. I mean that, but again, that never gets old. That watching a thrill like that is the thing that never gets old. And I think that's what works so well about Primal Fear is it, what's coming, and yet it still is thrilling to watch.
Right. Because it's fucking human theater, right? Like,
absolutely.
That always is going to be compelling to us. That's why, fucking Nosfer Karen Nancy Grace gets to keep having a job like that, is because we always sadly will be into that. We just will. It's our very nature is what humans can do this depravity, right? Like it is the spice of our sad little lives. Right. And this is the funny thing about this movie, right? Is again, this movie, we got to talk about the ending because this might be one of the most famous and impactful endings in movie history. I always wonder, would this movie have been a big hit and still equally as thrilling and interesting without that ending? There's no way it would be as good, but I think this is a pretty, this would be the movie that my mom would have been like, I'm glad I watched that, right? Oh, it's a wild split personality, sexual deviance in the church case, right? That ending is just an extra level that is transcending. So I would say the movie itself is just like this kind of C- courtroom movie. And again, that ending goes back like CRISPR and rewrites all of these extra layers on it that make it so much more than it was.
Right.
Right. Walk me through this ending. What about it? I mean, it's obviously just one of the all-timers.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the ending works. The ending is much better than I think any of us. Ending as a double twist, I guess. The ending works and is most thrilling because it plays on the sympathies we all have for someone, and that's like we all want a victim to be exonerated. We don't ever want to see a victim who took matters into their own hands feel that they are still a victim. So you're like, oh wow, this guy has multiple issues, and of course we root for him. So for them to throw it out the window and be like, he doesn't have multiple issues, or at least the issues we want him to have. He's not a victim. He victimizes, but he sort of victimizes the right people. This weird, like you were saying, dark passenger thing. It's just the dark passenger, though. I think what makes it impactful and makes it worthwhile is, to be honest with you, deep down, all of us want that. We all want to have the ability to say, oh, yeah, I'd fucking do that too, man. I don't even care. Like, the truth is, all of us, none of us would take matters in our own hands like that. But we watch characters like this because it's this wish fulfillment we all have of like, I would also be willing to do that and put my life on the line to prove someone, like, we all would be willing to say what's wrong with the world, but to actually straight up murder someone is a very different proposition altogether.
Well, I think we're, as a society, the only way we exist is because we're more Aarons than Roys.
Yes,
right?
100%.
I think what the ending does for me is it's not even, I think it's because we know Richard Gere's a shitty guy. And we know that Aaron did the crime. So even if he gets off, right, and like, oh, it's so sad what happened to this kid, he'll get the help he needs. I think the way it is when it's just his hands.
Yeah.
I think that's a really important moment. Because again, it's the camera reminding us too that this was all a sleight of hand. But also we're not seeing his face because that's the time for us to sit and in a reflective way see the egg on our own faces.
Right. It's like, a misdirect. I think the magician analogy you came up with is really apt. Like it's a misdirect. It's exactly what you would do. Like if you see someone's hands, tremoring, you're like, what's going on with that guy? You're not paying attention to their face because that's not, like, it's unusual to watch people's hands tremor. So you're obviously going to pay attention to the thing that's happening there and not the other thing, which is like this guy's face is probably not as twisty. The unfurling
smile, I'm glad I finally told. But in that moment, it's so funny to watch Richard Gere because, again, what I take from the end is he's like, oh my, and he'll grapple with this for like the afternoon, right?
He'll probably walk to the bar.
Thank God, happy hour. I do need a margarita. Like, hit me.
He'll walk to the ball, get a trash-arita, and definitely guzzle a couple oysters, go sexually harass a paralegal, and that'll be that.
Yeah, and then he'll be like, oh man, I'm such a great lawyer again. But because that's the line that just crushed me, is when he's like, I killed that bitch, Linda. She got what she deserved. And he's like, it doesn't matter who you hear it from. It's the same story. And that's the key to the movie, is that we were all watching the same story. But again, we're writing it to be this fun Lifetime movie version that we want, this thrilling twist and turns and this and that. And really what it is just, is absolutely just this guy who fucking brutally murdered someone. And whatever the reasons are, you don't get to just run around and start butchering people. So we all knew what was happening. And we all fucking wanted, in a way, we had the dissociative personality, right? Where we created this pocket version of ourselves where we could accept that the truth is not the truth. And that line again, it doesn't matter who you hear it from. It's the same story. That should have been on the poster of this movie instead of the fucking sexual assault demon wings or whatever. Because that is what makes this movie brilliant.
Agreed. Primal Fear, man.
Whatever
the name means.
If you go to the gerbil community, they know. All right, guys, that's it for Primal Fear. Our verdict, kick-ass movie. You guys should enjoy. We'll be back next week with a slightly less guilty client, the devil, in The Devil's Advocate, another movie I love. Guys, we have some exceptional guest hosts coming up with some really awesome movies. So make sure you subscribe, share with your friends, subscribe to the YouTube channel Film Alchemist, leave those rating and reviews, share us on your social media, and just reach out to us however you can. We love hearing from you guys. That's it for today for the Film Alchemist. I'm Josh Griffey.
I am Alex Dandino.